used to be, things pop off, you get pissed off, you go home, you do some shopping, you eat, you whatever, and you got a few months, then something comes back up, you have some time. This is back to back. It feels like an attack in a very real way.
What about our black young men out here on the street killing each other? Just today, 3 o'clock this evening, another young black, and you know why that bothered me? Because that young man was involved in my son death.
Even though my mother was a poor widow, white widow, right, immigrant widow in this city, I was born with privileged expectations.
Other young black men in public housing and those, they think that all white people are no good. They got people that still think that.
Back in the 60s, when I was at LSU, we thought we resolved a lot of this, that people were going to come together. We were so young and foolish to think that we solved the problem, right?
There needs to be a shift, a dynamic shift and a perspective shift in every individual. And a perspective shift in the individual is how they envision themselves and how they identify with themselves. And that is the only way I see, because it starts with self first.
Well, I signed up for the Welcome Tour because it came at a time when I was actually thinking about race relations. I'm starting to see a reoccurrence of a lot of racial problems, and I just wanted to get involved to find out what is really going on.
At first, I wasn't sure whether or not it was just going to be, a situation where, it's African Americans beating up on the whites for everything that, the whites have done wrong for all these years. And I was hoping that it was not going to be that type of environment, that it was going to be an environment to where we start learning about each other. And that's one of the things that came across in some of the very initial meetings that they had, where they were, just floating the idea of doing this.
Race and reconciliation is something I've always been interested in. And I work in the community, and I understand how the power structure and the dynamics affect the clients that I work with, and how it affects oppression and poverty. And then we had the series of other events that were in the media that were making that even more visible, and tensions even a little bit higher around it.
I'd always been a great admirer of Governor William Winter, who was a very progressive white governor of Mississippi. Back in the day when this was very difficult to talk about, I came across some information about him in his post-governorship working on an institute. We just started looking into it, and it turned out that there were, fellow travelers along the same path.
We have people who really want to get a unified community. We also have, unfortunately, those who still have not been willing to concede that there's remaining work to be done. That's what the Institute, the Winter Institute, is doing in Mississippi. It's what it's doing, I hope, in New Orleans, bringing together people of goodwill, of common purpose, working together to create a unified community.
Every time we keep thinking that we are where we want to be, events take us into a place where we thought we had left. When you look back and you think about the things that have happened in the country just in the past couple of years, from what happened in Gina to what happened with Trayvon Martin to Ferguson in New York, no matter where you are on those issues, you can't really go to sleep on the fact that we've got a lot of alienation in the country and a lot of discomfort. You can't conclude anything other than we're not together. I think it's pretty clear that when we are together, we can do great things, and then when we're not, we can't. And so if you want to be together, you got to go figure out what's separating you, what's keeping you apart.
Since 1619, the first slave ship came over, black people have been having a conversation about race. And I think one of the serious problems, we've been trying to get the other side to come to the table.
The welcome table itself comes from an old, wonderful civil rights anthem. One day I'm going to sit at the welcome table. It's a sort of claiming of a future that will be beloved and welcoming, inclusive and just. And so that's why we chose that name.
What I would like to see us do is to reach into our community schools, because that's where you learn when you're that big.
The way the welcome table works is we believe in the first of 3 phases, that you have to learn how to create a respectful space in order to have dialogue that leads toward relationship building and trust building. It has to happen intentionally, and so we have guideposts. There are 9 of them that help us together create a space, and they include guidelines like respecting silence and speaking from your own truth. And my personal favorite, when things get difficult, turn to wonder. When someone says something and your tendency is to get defensive, maybe step back and ask yourself, I wonder what happened to that person that led them to that conclusion. I wonder what my reaction to that person is telling me about myself.
People like to skirt around the true things about racism, privilege, and all these other different things, and people try to say, well, you know, it's now that the civil rights and it's equal and all that. In no actuality, it's not.
Then it gets into phase 2, where it actually gets harder, because now we want to figure out what we're going to do together to help support our community. And that's when, you know, the distractions of the world, of the way that we've been taught that things are the way they are, we have to sort of use the trust and the relationship to work through our differences about what we ought to do to make things better.
We have a lot of campaigns, a lot of money spent, so few people vote. And whatever we talk about, you know, means nothing if we just can't get people engaged.
Third phase really is the culmination of all of that work. We figure out a project to do together as a vehicle to really cementing the trust and learning how to get rid of our own personal agenda and work for the common good.
My family owned Evergreen Plantation. My father and all of his brothers and sisters, except for the youngest, were born on the plantation.
My great-grandfather ended up purchasing it after the Civil War. Even though my great-grandfather never owned slaves, you know, they did have African Americans that were working, because a lot of them stayed, you know, after the Civil War.
Give you a minute to think about what I'm going to ask you to share. What advice would you give to a mother who has just lost their child? What she can expect, what resources there might be, how would you have her, what would you share with her to help her through that first time?
It's enough to deal with unexpected death from somebody who died if they were sick or something. But when you're dealing with somebody that died with a crime, it's like, how do I move on? Because say I've moved on and I'm at peace and I started the new year, and then because it's a crime, then I have detectives that are calling me, and I have these DAs that are calling me, and they stir the pot, and it brings me all the way back to step 1, all over again. So now my emotions are all over the place. I'm reliving it all over again. And I don't think people understand that as much as we try to work to be resilient and to persevere, you always have these things that bring you back. And you really have to, you know, you really have to have faith in order to be able to get yourself out of that ditch, because you're thrown back in it so easy.
So easy.
You're thrown back in it so very easy.
I take almost 15 pills, 20 pills a day.
I believe, because I used to take them.
You know, but that's the impact, you know, that losing our sons, what has done to our life, you know. And I'm not going to lie and say I am there, I don't know if I'm gonna get there, you know, but I just know that through my faith, God has restored my faith, that I just take it just as it is, that day, today, you know, and just try to just live somewhat happier and to do something positive or to help somebody else or help another mother, help another child or something within that day's time. That helps me.
I tell everybody, tears are the best things ever. Tears are like the best. The only thing for me is my tears come sometimes when I don't want them, like when I'm at work and I'm like, Lord, don't let nobody come in here. So my thing is release it, because this is getting it out. It's getting it out.
When I lost my oldest son, my children were very young, and I thought that I had to be strong for them. My second oldest son came to me and he said, Mom, you never cried for Carrie. I said, yes, I did. He said, no, you didn't. I ain't see you cry. And I realized he hadn't seen me cry. He just wanted to know how I felt. Because if you don't show them that you're hurting, then it makes them think you don't care.
Audio Jungle.
I thought Katrina was the worst devastation of my life. But my son, the man, lost his life. My life was so destroyed. 6 days before it made a year for him, I wound up having to go in the hospital for emergency surgery. My heart was just that badly broken for losing my son. I didn't want to live. This is the scars from a mother whose heart has been broken into pieces unrepairable.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
I'ma talk about my wife, 'cause he was my child. He said, Mama, don't worry. He said, tell my story. Talk about your wife. Everywhere you go, whoever wanna know. Wild Man D from the CTC. Everybody that loves children assigned to gun violence. Mama Circle. Let's go get 'em. Mama. Let's go get 'em. I know your parents. Let's go get 'em. But stand for your son. My big boy.
This woman has changed my life, and all of you have too. And I made a commitment that I was going to do everything I could to make sure that we saved our sons and turned New Orleans into a city of peace from a city of death and destruction and hatred.
We mothers came together and we're standing. We're gonna stop the violence.
I am a community leader. I believe by helping my community, I am helping my world. And in these situations, I truly wonder, what am I doing all this for?
We gotta talk about what happened. We gotta understand it.
And as I related to Eric, his biggest challenge is not coming into the black community to see what he can do. His biggest challenge is confronting his family, his friends, his co-workers, his community, his neighborhood.
There is something that is happening spiritually, psychically, physically in this world that is saying you cannot get comfortable. For my husband, he's very committed to work and works with lots of organizations that are fighting this kind of stuff. And so as white people, and I'm getting, I'm married to a white man, I have a daughter, and I get people that are asking me from all sides, what can I do? Use your privilege. There is a veil that your privilege allows. So if this does not pierce you to your heart in a way that you cannot have a conversation today without breaking into tears, use that and use the power that you have and the access that you have to challenge these systems. Because, it's not about individuals and this and that. It's about these systems. Yeah, nobody was alive when this stuff was put in place. Those systems were put in place, so much of it right after slavery. We are in the afterlife, the afterbirth of slavery. And this shit is real. And our children are dying. So, I'm sorry if I'm not coherent. I appreciate it.
There's probably 5 to 10 people in this entire country that are probably driving 80 to 90% of all the nonsense. And some of them are on talk radio, some of them are on Fox, but it's a very small number of people. And the problem is the people who listen and watch to them only watch and listen to them, and they are completely ignorant of any other reality. And the stories that they believe are so freaking crazy and so twisted that there's no way you can ever talk them out of it, on an intellectual basis, because it's so, it's like a game. They will somehow find a way to talk their way out of whatever obvious fact you brought. That's how you get non-indictments. So you got to think about who's doing the storytelling that's driving all this, So, and how can we break through and really, build some bridges into this land where there's a lot of people that are just locked in, like the Matrix, thinking that this is reality, and it's totally not reality. We gotta get people unjacked out of the Matrix. Okay, so that's.
I don't care what you call yourself. I don't care what strata of the economy that you exist in and are comfortable in and call home. This mess gets everybody. And the only way we'll clean it up is to get everybody together, get some soap, get some water, and get to it.
Understanding our history, helps us, going forward in, our lives and our relationships with other people. Understanding what roles did, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and even further back played in, shaping this country and shaping this area. Do I ever feel any guilt or remorse, for, what's happened, with my family? And I don't feel it at all. That is stuff that, I had no direct control over myself. I know, as my father had explained, that, when our family was involved with the plantation, it was after the Civil War, so that, they did not own any slaves, that they were, all free people at that time. And the people that worked on the plantation chose to stay there and work on the plantation. They could have gone anywhere, at the time. But you also have to remember and consider, that the time, that was the time they lost it was around the Depression. So, and even before the Depression, what were the opportunities for African Americans, at that time?
Audio Jungle.
This is a national landmark with 37 buildings on the National Register. It has the same status as Gettysburg and Mount Vernon at this point. So that if you're looking for a plantation, that this is the most complete. and it has most of its buildings. This is really the flood of 27. And
Which is the year my dad was born.
Yes, and 3 years later, the Sangis actually lost it. It wasn't just the Sangis losing Evergreen. Almost everybody lost their plantations in those years. The trees were planted by the people who lived back here during the Civil War. Now that's oral history, but the trees bear that out. This is about how old they are. This was really a kind of a village apart, and it really was a village. People that we talked to that were here during your family. This was home. It wasn't. I've never had a group here that had bad feelings about living here, and so that, of course, I can't get into the earlier groups, but I certainly can.
Right.
I know the people who lived here during your family's tenure. Now there's no water here, no power here, and never was, so that you would have lived always without those two things. There was a privy behind each one. We know that from archaeology. This would have been home to, this could have been 10 people easily.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Four and a half years.
Yeah.
50, gonna be 56 months. Brought him back here and killed him. Dumped him and threw him away like he was trash. Like he wasn't nobody. He wasn't nothing. He was my son.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had a cross that they had made and put with his name on it. This where his body lay. Right here. Right here. And this will be part of the cross. This is part of the cross. This is part of the cross. The mark. D-A-M-O-N-D. Right here. Right here. Here's the rose. Right here. Here's another part of the cross. Right here. I still haven't found no closure. I still haven't found no peace. So my heart is still hurting. My heart is still hurting. It's not good. It's not good. It's not good. It's still not good. It's not good. I don't wish this on nobody. I don't wish this on nobody. Because it don't go away. It don't go away, and the pain never stops. The emptiness, the loneliness, it don't go away. You just get lonelier and lonelier.
This grass, we can cut it down. It'll grow back. Flowers you can put in the ground, and the winter take them away. It'll grow back. But that can't come back. You got a right to feel how you feel. That's your child. You bought that.
But I'm going to continue standing, Marty. And I'm going to continue standing for you. And I'm going to continue standing for us so that your life, you didn't die in vain. And that your life and your legacy that you have left, I'm going to continue to bring forth. I'm going to continue to help somebody else's child. And I know one day I'll see you again.
I know, Indian red, my Indian red, they kill him dead, they kill him dead. Oh, I love to hear you call my Indian red.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
In my situation, my son has scarred some other family. It's been, 8 years since my son committed this crime, and every time I'm faced with it, it's like it's the same day. It's the same moment. It hurts me so much inside that he has hurt other people that shouldn't even or don't deserve to be hurt.
I can look at you and with a lot of respect and be very thankful that you have the courage to do what you're doing.
I'm thankful for Yolanda, and I'm thankful that she did have enough courage to share. When I asked her, you need to let everybody know just how the mother from the other side feel.
We all lost children. You've lost yours, we've lost ours. But at the end of the day, we gained a family.
I guess I just want to know what we're fighting against or who. And so is it voter apathy? Is it suburban whites? Is it corrupt politicians? Or is it this nameless, faceless force of capitalism?
What I've realized is policy helps, but it's who are the people that are doing the thinking behind the policy? And then most importantly, who are the people that will be doing the executing of the policy? Because trust me, most of our laws are probably really solid if you had good-hearted, clear-headed people executing them.
The state of Louisiana incarcerates more people than anywhere, not only in this country, but internationally. African Americans.
When America is ready to acknowledge that the African slave trade, it was like no other slave situation ever. It was violence. It wasn't just servitude. It was a rape of the spirit. It was a stealing of the mind. It was breaking families apart, tearing mothers from their children. So when you take the minds and the spirit of people, what's left? How do we not think that that affects our families today? It reverberates even today. And so until America is ready to recognize the capital advantages that slavery and that violence on African people, that the wealth, the gross wealth for that top 2% is based on the blood and the suffering of people, then we can't have a racial conversation. That means that's meaningful, or that will lead us to reconciliation.
We're going to meet someone that I've seen on Nextdoor. Her name is Markeisha Sonji, and we're going to explore our history as families, and it ought to be quite interesting. You found me. Yep.
How are you doing?
There's no Mr. It's Eric Sonji.
Oh, well, I'm Markeisha Sonji.
Hi there. Come have a seat real quick. Okay. This is my wife, Kathy.
Hey. Hi, I'm Markeisha Sonji. Very nice to meet you. Nice to meet We're you cousins.
Somewhere down the line,
It can happen.
I'm still searching and looking.
There you go. Maybe you found us. So this is my mom. I care for. She's 90 years old. Doesn't look 90. But
90 years
old. Been caring for her her and my dad for 10 years. My dad passed away 5 years ago. But we still, so she follows me wherever I go. Either way at her
wrong
house.
with that.
Absolutely, yeah. So I learned my cleaning skills from my mom. Absolutely.
I learned them from my great grandmother.
Oh,
yeah.
She does house cleaning as part of her career.
I think that hurt that I can't do the things I used to do.
Really?
Yeah. Slow down a lot with arthritis and age and
the age.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's a blessing you hit us along.
Yeah, this is true.
This is where my dad was born.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
What is that? It
You
looks
know
like
this?
a plantation house.
You know this?
No.
It's the same house.
As that one on the wall?
Yep. That was back in the 1930s, 20s or 30s. My dad was born on that plantation in 1927. My great-grandfather owned it. He lost it in 1930 when my dad was 3 years old.
Really?
The whole family had to move off. There are black Sanjis that still work for the leasing companies there that harvest the cane, that run the cane and everything else.
Oh my
So
goodness.
that's why I wanted to, explore. When you said your grandfather was,
It's really
from-
hard trying to find so much. Like I've been looking for such a long time, and you had all these stories. Like the only black Sanjis
Well-
I know are in my family in the city. Any other Sanji is a white. I just happened to get on Facebook and I said, well, let me see how many Sanjis there is. Of course, my sister, my brother, and all my cousins popped up. So all together, it was about maybe 10 of us. After that, white. And I actually counted. It was 55 within the metro area. And I was like, oh my goodness, are you, that's when I found out that I might be tied to Caucasian people. And I was just I was amazed, not discouraged, because it's a learning process. I get to learn from another race as like they get to learn from me. And we just get to know each other and all get along.
the key to this is they're always live when you put them in the pot. Because if they're not live, the meat's going to be mushy. I knew there were two brothers that had gone to St. Aug, I don't know, did they both go to Tulane or one went to Tulane?
I think one just went to Tulane.
And did they both get into pros?
Yes, they did.
I mean, you see pictures in the paper, it's like, wait.
Hold up, wait a minute.
You're not family. Where'd that come from? And then you go to ask your dad, my dad, then he says, some of the African Americans, took the name of the owner of the plantation, at some point, in their lives. How do you call it?
A healer.
A traiteur.
A what?
A traiteur. A healer.
A healer.
Oh, a traitor.
How you say it?
A traitor.
A traitor?
Traitor.
Traitor?
Traitor.
Really? Yeah, my grandfather was a healer. And back in those days, they didn't have a lot of money. So when he healed someone, they would paid him with like vegetables or an animal, like a goat or something, for him to cook for his family.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I just recently found that out. I thought he was Catholic all these years. I'm not gonna lie, race is kind of hard to discuss. I kind of try to avoid it, but when I find that she makes a mistake speaking on people or something she doesn't know about, I have to address it head on. But she's definitely open to learning. Prime example, the guy I brought my house from, off of Rhodes. I used to go to school with him in Barris, Louisiana. The first time I met him, I'm not lying, he said, "Nigga, what you doing on my bus?" That's what he said. And I come from the city of New Orleans, because my father's from New Orleans, but my mother's from down there. I didn't know how to react to that. I was like, oh my God, did he just, call me the N-word? Oh my goodness. All I could do was go home and tell my father and my brother, I don't know what happened between him and my brother, but here we are years later. I'm buying his house. He remembered who I was. He apologized so much to me and said, that's how I was raised, and I'm sorry, I knew better. He remembered exactly who I was and apologized. And I said, I forgave you a long time ago. Because, you know, some people just don't know no better. At the time, you didn't know no better. I could have reacted in a very badly way, but I forgave you a long time ago. It's just a word. You didn't put your hands on me, and a word don't make me or it don't break me. That's how my parents raised me. Words are just words. Well, like my father said, they call Jesus Christ all kind of names. So you're no different.
Some children are sometimes cruel.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think all we're doing right now is reliving the past with everything that's going on. Right. Our parents and everything march for respect and everything. Now these days, I find parents are telling their children, oh, you got to stand up for your rights. You might have to tell some stuff. We don't want to do that. We don't want to get violent. We want to do what they did back then. If we want equal rights and everything, then march. Look who you vote for. Talk to your candidates you vote for. You know, see who's for you and who work for you. But at the end of the day, like this gentleman was saying, all we need is love.
Yeah.
Love will conquer anything.
Well, that's one of the things that's real critical to me, like in the projects that we're doing with the Welcome Table. There's some push to have very deep discussions about race reconciliation, and to me, it's much more important just to get people to start talking and realizing, hey, you and I have something in common, okay? And Lloyd, it's like, wow, you've got great values. I like your values. You like my values. We have things in common. We come from different backgrounds. And there's people that come from all over the world.
This is a New Orleans delicacy.
People try to act like we even came so far, and I hear people say, they still hear sometimes like, we got a black president, so everything is hunky-dory and we good in America. In all actuality, it's not the truth. And people like to skirt around the true things about racism, privilege, and all these other different things. And people try to say, well, it's now they have the civil rights and it's equal and all that. In all actuality, it's not. Racism and racial things it's still a structural problem. They're embedded in it.
We think that we made it, as he said, but we didn't. And I actually think that racism has been supplanted by crime, black on black crime to be specific. I mean, we think this is the problem, but racism is part of crime these days. I told Max, and I'm gonna tell you all, my son was just carjacked. I could have lost him. It hurts me.
At gunpoint.
The reason I'm doing the job that I do right now is because I wanted to do something for the black people that was in that building. I wanted to be the engineer for the building because they looked at it as something they couldn't do. When I was taking the test for that, they said, man, I hope you get it, because we never had a black engineer. And I swear to you, I wanted to be an artist all my life. I wanted to do something creative. This is not what I love to do. But I did it, and when I did that, when I crossed that line, people were so happy. And I'm like, I didn't want to be the first black anything. But I'm 60 years old, I'm 60 years old. And you can tell me we're still talking about racism, and my dad's 88, and he's telling me there's a new way of racism, and it's true. They're failing people in our school, they're telling you that they're low performing. They're telling us, but it's a prelude to murder, and we wonder why they're shooting each other, killing each other, because they're putting it in their hands, they're putting drugs in our community. This is not by accident. I don't want to offend anybody, but I know, I see it all the time. And I got to protect my family. But if I don't lost my son, I'm telling you, I would have lost my mind. I'm losing it now. I'm texting him now, please be cool. I don't want to, I'm sorry about getting emotional.
No,
My
no.
son is my life. I raised that boy.
God sent me here tonight.
But if we connect crime with racism, and I think there's a connection, we can't overlook that. It's not just about employment. It's not just about money. And we have to reconnect. Us who made it, we have to connect. We have to stay connected with our communities. Stop leaving the community and say, oh, I made it, and looking down on people because they know that's what's happening. We don't care anymore. I care.
As a young man, made some mistakes in my life. Made some mistakes. Wound up going to prison. Wound up going to federal prison because I sold drugs. You know, I wanted to escape poverty. I wanted to be able to help my family. I remember coming home, applied for a job, the box that said check off for your convicted felon. I left it blank because I knew if I would have checked it off, then I wouldn't have had a chance anyway. So I just left it blank. So the manager gave me the job. You know, I was delivering paint for about 2 weeks. I was doing an excellent job. You know, I busted my ass. I'm talking about doing good. Anytime they called me to come and work, I was going. I'm like, shit, if somebody gave me an opportunity, damn, I got an opportunity. So after 2 weeks passed, he walked me in the office. He said, man, I tried to talk to the region. He said, man, you're a good worker. He said, you're one of the best employees here. He said, but it's their policy, man, we gotta let you go. Growing up in public housing, people told me don't trust white people. Man, white people, they no good, don't trust them, they evil, all them conniving. Yeah, I believed that. I had believed every single word of it. Every single word. Until I went to Boys Town, Nebraska. In Boys Town, and I got a roommate that's a white person, and I got family teachers that's white. And I'm like, oh no, this shit ain't true. All white people ain't bad, all white people ain't racist. And I had a white girlfriend. Like, man, I would have never thought I'd have a white girlfriend.
I sold drugs too, but not because I wanted to support my family. I just wanted to sell drugs, and I wanted the money that came along with selling drugs, and I was good at it because I didn't do that much. I drank a lot, but I didn't do that much. I was arrested 9 times, and I never went to prison. My uncle was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Louisiana. Because of who I was, I didn't have to suffer the consequences that you had to suffer when I was doing the same thing. Now, 35 years later, I'm teaching at a black school, and I'm one of the few white people that teaches there, and it's really hard to get things done. And I came home so frustrated one time. I said, it's the best thing that ever fucking happened to me. And my husband said, why? I said, because this is the most frustrating thing in my life. I said, well, I'm at a meeting, and I say something, and this person says, I disagree. It says the same thing I said. And everyone goes, oh yeah! I said, Jesus Christ. I said, this shit is whack, man. I said, you just hitting your head against the wall. And I'm, no the fuck wonder. It's the hardest thing I ever fucking did in my life. And I'm back every day. Okay, here I go. And it's just, and they're like, oh wow, you still here? But I'm serious when I tell you it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I've been knowing about racism. I've been knowing about, how people were treated for, 60 years of my life. But I never knew, just the tiny frustrations of daily living that you have to face, and the time it takes to live your life putting up with this bullshit. It's too hard. I mean, it's not too hard, of course. You have to just be harder. And I have to say that as much as I knew about it, and because I knew about it, of course, I've written on it for years, I never experienced it. And experiencing it really is the best thing that ever happened to me.
Audio Jungle.
It's an opportunity for us to make a step towards something that could be bigger, right?
We could do interviews about Mardi Gras, we could do interviews about religion, we could do interviews about the river, about the plantations, about the slave trade, whatever. There's a whole slew.
The young people would not just have their hands in the production, but they would have their minds and hearts in the brainstorming of the piece.
Today, we recognize and celebrate the first year of the Welcome Table New Orleans initiative, an effort that focuses on race, reconciliation, and community building.
Reconciliation requires an acknowledgement that something bad happened. Then it requires an apology. And so that is step one. So on this day, let me, as the Chief Executive Officer of this government, in this city, that at one moment in history sold more slaves into slavery than anywhere else in America, apologize for this country's history and legacy of slavery.
Public art has been used to influence and inspire the public and tell their stories. To communicate at a glance. To be imprinted by a sense of something only requires seeing it, sharing space and time with it. Visuals speak to our hearts and souls unfettered by thought.
Our project outcome will be a permanent visual and audio art installation of Algiers history. We believe this project will reach a diverse public and initiate multiple conversations to allow residents to move past our fear and apprehension and explore how we together create a more positive and equitable future.
Our project is called History Matters, and it has three main components. First, we'll design and place historical markers around the city so that we can illuminate our past. Second, we'll host public events so that people can learn from and empathize with one another. And finally, we'll create a curriculum and other resources that'll help teachers across the city teach our young people about the history of race and racism so that they too can join us in this work.
Throughout a year-long pilot program, we will focus our collective efforts on the St. Roch community. We anticipate engaging the St. Roch community in dialogue and narrative by drawing upon their stories. We hope to initiate conversations that acknowledge the historic roots of oppression and examine the domino effects of racism. We will identify historic landmarks and places in the St. Roch neighborhood where we can host conversations and learn about how racism is affecting us all. We will promote and host a series of public dialogues and story circles, providing local residents with opportunities to share among themselves cultural trends, experiences, and values.
I came into the circle thinking, hey, I'm open, I'm ready, I can do this, I understand it. I grew up in the 50s and 60s in New Orleans as a minority because I was Jewish in Catholic New Orleans. I got this. No, I didn't. I had miles to go in my learning experience, and the people in this circle just, you know, through our frustrations, our excitement, our explanations, helped me get further down. And at 68, I can tell you I have miles to go to learn even more, but I am so willing to do it.
We feel that it's absolutely essential to teach the lessons of our history, which is why our project is called History Matters. We absolutely felt that we had to know what happened in order to be able to reconcile it. So we wanted to move into the neighborhood in circles and engage the neighborhood in conversations, particularly around gentrification, in the hopes that we could come together and build a better Central City than we've experienced previously.
That apology today from the mayor meant the world to me, and often tears were shed, and that was a moment of tear shedding. And I just want to acknowledge and accept the apology, and that's how we begin.
It was a very difficult process. I was expecting to be frustrated, and I was. I was expecting to be angry, and I was. And lots of times I went home exhausted and ready to let it go. But it challenged me. It challenged me. It changed. It transcended the way I thought of myself and my perceptions and beliefs and how I saw other people.
Knowing everything that you know now, having experienced everything that you've experienced, how many of you would go through this process again? Well, I think that's unanimous, people. So thank you all so much.
I would definitely recommend the welcome table process for anybody. I get why people might be hesitant and that people might be afraid, but that's always the place where we should really lean in, where you feel yourself kind of clamming up, where you feel the most resistance. And I mean, it's too important.
I do recommend this process to other people. It's a carefully structured process. It's a very, certainly a very safe and secure process in a sense of emotional safety. People are very welcoming. That's why we call it the welcome table. They are non-judgmental. They are open. They're friendly, and they're willing to speak their minds without fear of emotional attack.
I'm talking to people now, whereas before I might have let it pass when they said something that hurt my heart and made me uncomfortable. But now I'm trying to draw them out and get them to a point where they're just not throwing bad terms out.
Well, I think that how we get along is one by one. And I think that's where the process, the welcome table process, is very helpful. They're very gentle in allowing us to discuss first an abstract situation and then bring it back to ourselves. They're very wise in not saying, now write about a time when you, but they make you talk about it. Because if you can admit it, that's the first step towards healing. And you know, we got to heal ourselves first, right? So I think the unconditional love comes one by one.
I feel like this load has been lifted off me, like I'm not carrying the burden all alone. And I realized that it's me. It was my perceptions and my anger that I was carrying that was contributing to the burden of the world. It was contributing to the burden of the problem we already had. And so I see this whole issue that we're dealing with in a very, very different way. And it's not that I'm there, I've arrived or anything like that. It's sort of like peeling back layers and asking myself questions, but I feel a lot less burdened and I feel a lot less anger.
Most definitely I would encourage people to do this work because it is important. It's that lack of connection with other people to get perhaps a little spiritual in it. I would say God, I don't think He made us different from each other to be in conflict, but I think He made us different to be in contact with each other, to have conversation.
In a word, describe what's keeping you motivated. My word is important.
The one that probably built his house.